Hello and good evening. My name is Sandra Lopez, and you're watching Movement News. Movement News is Chicagoland's newest grassroots media organization committed to the presentation of local Chicagoland news, updates, and narratives. We aim to present stories that represent you and your local community. Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to the movement. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in to Elections 2020. Happy Super Tuesday! Today's episode, we will be turning our attention to the most significant day in the Democratic primary. Super Tuesday is a single day that most states hold primaries or caucuses, and where more than a third of all delegates for the Democratic National Convention are up for grabs. That's 1,357 delegates to be exact. The delegate total, not the popular vote, is a number that counts when it comes to deciding a party's presidential nomination. These past few days have seen a number of drastic changes, with former Vice President Joe Biden quickly surging in the polls to become the moderate candidate to challenge Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Sanders has climbed to the top in recent national polls and also leads in delegate counts. Sanders' competition for a more moderate alternative has been scrambled in recent days. On Saturday, Biden won South Carolina, prompting three candidates to drop out of the race, including former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, and investor Tom Steyer. Buttigieg and Klobuchar joined former candidate Beto O'Rourke in unifying to back a challenger not known as Bernie Sanders. The wild card in this race is undoubtedly New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg, who I'm sure you've seen a few ads on social media, on TV, who not only skipped the early voting states, but he also pushed expensive and ubiquitous campaign ads, something that looks a little like this. Super Tuesday will be the first time that his name will be on the ballot. I'm going to go ahead and give you all some results that we have. So currently, Biden, it looks like Biden has already won Alabama, North Carolina, and Virginia. And Bernie Sanders is leading in Vermont. So we'll go ahead and keep you posted on social media. Also on the ballot today is Texas's 28th congressional district. And on the ballot is immigrant and human rights attorney Jessica Cisneros. Cisneros is aiming to unseat Texas Representative Henry Cuellar for the U.S. House seat that Cuellar has held for 15 years. Cisneros is running for Congress on a progressive platform that includes Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, and immigration reform. She has also been endorsed by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as well as Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, both of whom are running for the presidential election. Her opponent, Cuellar, has received a failing grade from Planned Parenthood and an A rating from the National Rifle Association. He also endorsed George W. Bush and voted with Donald Trump 70% of the time that he was in office. Texas's congressional district stretches from the U.S.-Mexico border to northeast San Antonio, a combination of both rural and urban. It is 78% Hispanic, and almost a quarter of the district. The district's population lives under the poverty line. As of last month, Cisneros had also raised $1 million, a significant chunk of change for any primary challenger. Cuellar, for his part, has raised a total of $1.7 million. We're going to go ahead and now move over to international news. No evidence of fraud in Morales' poll victory. Bolivia is gearing up for a do-over election on May 3rd, with unrest persisting following the November 10th military-backed coup against incumbent President Evo Morales, who at the time was Latin America's longest-standing head of state. So let's bring it back. Just last year, when Morales claimed victory in Bolivia's presidential election that took place in October, his victory prompted protest and outrage from the opposition, which called the election an electoral fraud. Earlier this year, we reported on the claims of fraud following the election in Bolivia and the subsequent ouster of the president Evo Morales by the Bolivian military in what several observers called a coup. But researchers at MIT's Election Data and Science Lab claim that they have found no statistical evidence that shows that the October election was a fraud. Recent reporting in the Washington Post stated, "Our results were straightforward. There does not seem to be a statistically significant difference in the margin before and after the halt of the preliminary vote. Instead, it is highly likely that Morales surpassed the 10 percentage point margin in the first round." The claims of election fraud originated from the Organization of American States, or OAS. OAS has been regarded by some in the region as a tool of United States influence. The U.S. provides 60% of the institution's annual budget and has long been critical of left-wing governments in Latin America, such as the one led by Morales. Despite these new challenges to the legitimacy of fraud, Morales remains in exile in Mexico, and the right-wing interim president of Bolivia, Janine Áñez Chávez, who is pictured here, will stand in for elections in May. The highest polling presidential candidate, a member of Morales' Movimiento al Socialismo party, has received a summons from prosecutors for undisclosed crimes, a move some analysts suspect was aimed to keep him off the ballot. The official OAS Twitter account released a tweet standing by the organization's audit of the Bolivian election. Check it out. And the tweet states, "The OAS General Secretariat stands by its audit of the Bolivian election. You can see the OAS response to the distorted allegations and flawed analysis recently published by visiting their tweet online. Their Twitter handle is @OAS official. You can go ahead and read the entirety of the letter yourself." And tonight's hot topic, we're bringing back a guest that we actually had in our first episode. Her name is Cecilia Garcia. Cecilia Garcia is a mother of 5 U.S. citizens and an immigrant rights activist whose husband, Hugo, was deported 8 years ago. Since his deportation, Ceci has struggled to hold a family together while she fights to bring him back. She is a founder of Family Reunification and a member of the Right to Family campaign. The campaign has been fighting for a bill that would stop the deportations by providing DACA protections for all undocumented and allow for 2 million deportees to return. Last week, they traveled to Washington, D.C. to speak with the Hispanic Caucus and other members of the House of Representatives. Hi, Ceci.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you for joining us. So can you explain to us a little bit about your husband's case and just give us some background on that?
So 8 years ago, what we thought was a typical day, he was driving, called me that he was heading home. Till this day, I don't remember what I was making for dinner, but, I remember him telling him and kissing each other, over the phone, goodbye, and see you soon. Hours passed. I thought, well, maybe he stopped by since he's a mechanic to see a friend's car or vehicle. And then I saw the Evergreen Police Department on the caller ID. My heart sank. But I really didn't, I was like, okay, so he's there. So I called when he picked up the phone. He's like, I'm here in the police station because the vehicle had expired. The plate sticker, but now they're going to call ICE. And I was like, what do you mean they're going to call ICE? I'm like, no, I'm fixing your status. So although Chicago Cook County is dubbed a sanctuary city, there's still no accountability if an officer, decides to use his personal discretion. That's what happened. So within 12 hours, my husband was in process of deportation. He wasn't breaking a crime, wasn't selling drugs, he wasn't, raping anybody. It was just a typical day where he was just going home after a hard day at work. So it's been, I always felt that as an American citizen, I had that privilege. I was still, flabbergasted, like, how is it that he's being deported if I'm fixing his papers? There's always that misconception. So he by signing his voluntary departure, he was given a 10-year bar, which means he is not allowed to enter the country or apply to enter the country until those 10 years are over. So he got 2 years to go.
Right, this was 8 years ago.
That was 8 years ago.
Wow.
Exactly.
And you said the whole processing him just took about 12 hours?
Yes.
Wow.
So yeah, and all he told me was that the police officer left the shift, and the third shift, they said if they don't come and pick you up, we'll just give you a bond and you go home. But they were there at 6 a.m. in the morning because he got pulled over at 6 p.m. and at 6 a.m. they were there and he was already in process for ICE.
Wow. And what happened next?
So then what happened? So typically someone's detained. He had to wait till they fill a plane or a bus, I believe. So it was like he was in detention for about 3 weeks. Then I was able to say goodbye, gave him a duffel bag, and then they just, ship him out. They release him in the middle of the night with no access of no telephone, nothing. I mean, it's a desolate place. They have changed, where people were, and I remember them telling me, they're like, tell him that not to talk to anybody, that if they see a white van, to go into that white van because it helps them. They'll take him to the bus station. So he stayed at the bus station overnight while I transferred some money so that he could buy a ticket back home.
Wow.
So yeah, and and it's changed, but not really, not too much. I mean, that's a life of a deportee, and there's always it seems like the deported are forgotten because everybody that claims to have been deported, that they're criminals of all the rhetoric, but that's not true. My husband was just working and just providing for his family. That was all he was doing.
Right, and nothing can prepare you for something.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, it's been very difficult. Now I was faced with being a mom and dad to 5 American citizen children. I myself was born and raised here in Chicago. Becoming very frugal. Now I'm in the process of being in foreclosure. I'm losing my home. I try to keep things afloat. I never thought it was going to last this long. But even with me working 2 to 3 jobs, my children weren't going to school. They were truant. And then DCFS gets involved and they try to say I was a negligent mom. And this is all like what they don't understand, that all the issues my children are having, it's because of this government. It's just, it seems like, I don't know what. Like they say that the pursuit of happiness, right? But I feel like I've been persecuted. I'm living a nightmare because I'm a woman of color, and that's been my reality for these past 8 years, and that's why I advocate and try to make changes in law, but also motivate. Like today is Super Tuesday. And unfortunately, there's hundreds of people being detained today and probably in process of deportation. And that's a reality because we get calls every day that my husband, my father, my uncle is in ICE detention center. He was just walking to the car, heading to work. So these are stories we hear every day.
Right.
So.
Right. And I mean, so you right now, so Ceci is an immigrant rights activist. So did you start getting more involved with your activist projects, activities after the deportation?
Yes.
With your husband?
So before that, again, I was always, we had the white picket fence, had a Hummer, just thought everything was good and dandy. And it was until this happened to me that opened my eyes on just how broken our system was. And I just felt that, this was unfair. So I learned... Elvira Arellano, who was the first person that sought a sanctuary, I met her through social media. She invited me to the church. And I was a little skeptical because I'm like, oh, that's a Methodist church, growing up as a Catholic. But I loved it. And this has been therapy for me. And it just, makes me stronger and inspires me, the people that I see that are so broken. And that's what I try to do, try to lift up the people to find their voice so they can talk and stand up for themselves and defend our families. Because I think that's what it is. We're so scared of the rhetoric that this president has done. Like he builds this momentum like hysteria, and then people are just afraid to even go out. People just to go to work, just to go take their child to school. But that's not a coincidence. That's done intentionally so that people, are not counted for the census. Now we hear this with the coronavirus. I mean, there's just always things that's led to always attacking our most vulnerable, which are the immigrants of this country.
Absolutely. And even with the public charge, which was initiated last Monday.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems...
And now we're hearing about they want to denaturalize. So you know that it has nothing to do with, the good and bad immigrant. It has has absolutely everything to do with racism. And then specifically, the ones they're looking for is the Latinos. And that's where, us as families are being affected because we are Latinos.
Right, right.
know.
What I do find super commendable about what you're doing is that you just mentioned Ceci works a lot of jobs. She has 5 children, but you still chose to get involved in this organization to help other families, be a support system or be someone's rock.
Absolutely.
And that's really incredible and something that I've noticed with a lot of immigrant rights organizations or justice activist groups is that we're all here for each other and that, you're not alone and these families are not alone.
Oh, yeah.
That's really commendable.
Yes, and I am actually very grateful for my church because it's been a family who's given me the support, and actually it made me find my voice because I didn't feel like, it felt very small. Now it's like when we went to DC, it's like I'm not asking, I'm demanding what's rightfully mine. My family it's based on morals. If we want to go back to making America great again, then we have to bring back our morals because this is what we're based on. A broken family breaks up communities, that, and the DNA, we see that not only they said that there was a DNA of trauma that was linked to the children in the Holocaust, slavery. It's the same genetic gene that we're going to see it when these children that were young now are going to grow up, and you're going to see how the DNA, how it's going to affect them, the trauma, because even every time I hear a story, I start crying and I get flashbacks, like the day that happened to me, the day that I got the call, the day that I had to explain to my children, Daddy's not coming home. Right. Waking up to an empty bed because my husband's not there, him not being there for his, family to him is everything. Not being there for special occasions, for birthdays, graduations, and having 2 daughters that contemplated suicide because they didn't know how to deal with, without their dad. So I do go visit him, not as often as I would like to because of the money, and I can't miss work. But all I can say is that this made us stronger, that my faith, I know that no man-made law will ever separate the love that me and my husband have. That will always connect us, and I will continue fighting, because what good is it that I bring my husband back and then my neighbor's child is crying for their father? And then that's why we have to change these laws,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you had just mentioned the trip that you were in DC this past
Yes.
weekend. And can you tell us a little bit about that and what that trip entailed?
So basically we are running the Right to Families campaign, and I'm going to go. So what it does is, it's a bill that would provide DACA protections to all, because they always talk exceptionally well about DACA recipients are the best of the best, but what makes them so wonderful is because they were raised by wonderful parents, and those parents also deserve the right to be here. So this is what the bill would entail, would extend not only for DACA, but also open it up for, because it's closed now, open it up for those who can apply, and the DACA Plus, which is, for example, if someone doesn't have any children, doesn't have a spouse, but they've been here, they also deserve the right to be protected if they've invested in this country for 5 years or more. And what it does a background. It's a 3-year renewable visa. It's similar to the DACA, but this one I like particularly because it would be able to bring back the deportees, which would include my husband and veterans, because we've had veterans who have been deported in the past. So this is everybody says that they're stuck on, we have to have citizenship or nothing, but we've got nothing. All we've gotten is more deportations and more separations of families. So this would be a 2-step process. So, we asked my daughter, would you prefer Papi to be here legally where he's going to be a citizenship, but he's going to have to wait 10 years? Or would you want him with a working permit that he could be back tomorrow? Of course, she's going to pick the one that he can be back tomorrow. So this will have, the people protected and also be able to work. And it would pay for itself. Like DACA, there's nothing that you see that, the economy is affecting. It actually, it pays itself. And people working, they will give into the community. And the economy, I know it will grow. So this is why our bill is different, and there's nothing else out there. I tell them, we have the solution because this bill was written for us, by us, and this is why this is a solution, that we can't wait till president for 2020, we need something now. Like I said, just today, there's hundreds of families that are going to be broken up because of ICE detention.
Absolutely. And what are the next steps for your campaign?
So we went specifically to to lobby and talk to elected officials by sharing our stories. A lot of them didn't even realize that, wait a minute, you're an American citizen. You weren't able to establish status for your husband. Like, no, and that's what's like, oh my God, you guys are these elected officials. You should know this, but you don't, right? So we're trying to do is we're trying to pressure them so that they can, we're looking for a champion that will be willing to introduce this bill to the floor. But not only introduce it to the floor, but we have to get those enough votes so it could become a bill and become law. So that's what our focus was, and we met with members of the Hispanic Caucus and just relatively just trying to build momentum where we can get endorsements of organizations and people because there is, power in numbers, and that's what we need. And we need to mobilize to stop the bleeding now, not November 2019 for, January 2020. We need something now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And how can someone get involved? How can someone like myself get
Oh,
involved?
definitely. So you can visit our at the website www.write2family.com, and you could join. Also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, Familia Latina Unida /Centro Sin Fronteras. And we have all those information online. And then you can follow me too, Cecilia Garcia, at Facebook, Instagram, and so forth, and Family Reunification. Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Cecilia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
bless.
for joining.
Take care.
So as Cecilia mentioned, you can go ahead and follow them online. We'll be sharing all of Familia Latina Unida, Ceci's profile, and the Rights to Family campaign on all of our social media. So just make sure you follow us to get all that information.
There you go. The Right to Family.
There you go. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Like we always say, all the issues discussed in this episode are directly related to voter participation. The laws that affect our lives are written by those who we elect to serve in office. Remember that each year, 4 million young people turn 18, and that's a voting bloc with the potential to decide elections. The Illinois primary is coming up on Tuesday, March 17th, and in Illinois, you can register to vote at an early voting site at your local precinct on Election Day. Early voting has already begun in Illinois and is available until March 16th. A new super site is located at 191 North Clark Street in the Loop and will be available 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday to Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays. The ballot will also be available in 6 languages. If you need to register for the first time or you need to change your address, you must bring 2 valid forms of ID, and one of them needs to have your current address. To find your early voting site, please visit thecookcountyclerk.com/service/early voting locations. You can also follow us online. We're on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as YouTube. We're at Mass Movement Media. So go ahead and tag us, follow us, and see what we've been up to and what we have in store for you next week. And that's all we have for you tonight. We're going to go ahead and end tonight with some local talent. And today's local talent is from Pilsen, a Pilsen native named Rosalba Valdez, and her new single, Saluda mi bandera. Enjoy!
Si tú vas a Cuba, tráeme un recuerdo que hace mucho tiempo que estoy en mi pueblo. Cuando vas a Cuba, busca a mis amigos, dales un abrazo, esos son los míos. Cuando vayas a Cuba, me la saludas a mi bandera. Cuando vayas a Cuba, me la saludas a mi bandera. por las calles de Cuba, caminando por las calles de Cuba, caminando por las calles de Cuba, caminando por las calles de Cuba. Cuando vayas a Cuba me la saludas a mi bandera. Cuando vayas a Cuba me la saludas a mi bandera. Cuando vayas a Cuba me la saludas a mi bandera. Cuando vayas a Cuba me la saludas a mi bandera. Cuando dejes Cuba, tráeme un cigarro, tiene que ser puro para saborearlo. Cuando estoy en Cuba, encuéntrame bailando un café cubano para seguir gozando.